Hey guys, how you doing? So in this video, we're going to go over what the Nvidia CEO said about coding. He basically said, don't learn to code. Coding has no future. So being an old-time coder, I scratched my head. I said, wait a second, that's weird. So let me just cut to the chase. And based on my 3 decades of experience in the field, so first of all, no. Software development and coding is not going away. It's just going to change. And this has happened several times before. And I'm going to give you some examples where a new technology emerges and then people out there are going, oh my God, it's the end of the world. That's it for the profession, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't happen. So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples that are fairly recent. And I think that will help you in terms of if you have any fears about this. So my final comment, I'll just give you a final comment before I go into the details. This is what I've been saying for years. Concentrate on the fundamentals, learn to build things. So learn the foundations of code, and then learn to build things, start building things as quickly as possible. You don't want to get stuck in tutorials. You got to learn soft skills, educational skills, organizational skills. These are all super important, especially in the age of AI and prompt engineering, as they say. But this has been hugely important in the past, for sure. So the elite developers of today and the past had this range of skills that I talked about just now. So let me just jump into it. So the Nvidia CEO says coding has no future. So why would he say this? So first of all, let's talk about coding versus development. This video is sponsored by Porkbun, a domain name registrar. They got a huge selection of .coms, .food, .it, .inc for you to choose from. They are ranked #1 on USA Today. They got the top score on Trustpilot with 4.8 stars. Over 9,000 reviews. The reason to use Porkbun, besides the fact you can trust them, is that each domain comes with a free Who Has Privacy. Other places you got to pay for that. Free SSL certificate, URL forwarding, and email forwarding. As you can see here, Porkbun has a large range of domain name extensions from .academy, .agency, .air force, etc., and so on. You can also see that they have a lot of sales. For example, .cash, first year sale, more than 50% off. So with Porkbun, you have a lot of extensions, you have lots of money saving opportunities on the domain names, and you have a trusted service because you see the rankings here on Trustpilot and USA Today and so on. Check out Porkbun, link below, and get $1 off your first domain. Coding is just writing the code, the HTML, the CSS, the Python, whatever, the Java, the C. And then there is development. There is a difference, and it's a big difference. So coding is just writing code. Development is actually developing, putting together, building software-based solutions. So that, well, part of that is coding, but a big part of it is also understanding the landscape in terms of technologies that you have. You have to have those nerd eyes, as I call them, the ability to discern what's out there, to be able to pick and choose what is best. So I'll give you a very concrete example. Something very simple. You're putting up a web store for some local small business, a coffee shop. I like using coffee shops as some examples. So coffee shop. So you got to decide, okay, you got to build the branding site. You got to pick the right photography. You got to put the right copy in there. You got to choose the right posting program. Do you go static website? Do you go WordPress? Do you go with Joomla, Drupal, different CMS? What kind of online processing you're going to do? Are you going to just use Stripe or PayPal or use a third party? Are they shipping product or not? Or is it a digital product? Is it coupon based? So on and so forth. What kind of database are you going to use for this project? See, these are all decisions that have to be worked out by the developer. Where do you deploy it? You know, it has to go where do you host it? What kind of the security you have to put in place, etc. I'm just scratching the surface of a very simple project, just putting up a bloody e-commerce presence for a local business. Just when you're dealing with the branding end of a website, that requires good marketing knowledge, domain knowledge. They talk about that in AI, something I've been talking about for years and years now. So you got to figure out, okay, this is the coffee store. What kind of coffee are they selling? What's the competitor? What's their advantage in the marketplace? How do we present that in the website itself? How do we present that? What type of images are we going to use? What is the copy we're going to use? AI can help with all this, but it's nowhere near able to put all these different requirements together, figure out what technologies to use. Notice all this work I'm talking about here, which is the bulk of the work, no coding in that, right? There's a huge amount of work just developing WordPress-based sites as a simple example. So I wanted to start by differentiating between the coder, who just writes lines of code, versus the developer. There are coder jobs, right? You may be a Python coder who writes Python scripts, not apps, but scripts to manage a server farm that are rendering all kinds of videos. So I know people who work at big animation houses, and that's what they do. They hire Python developers and they're managing all these Python scripts. And again, there's a lot of decisions being made, even in these seemingly simple situations where AI can help, right? Clean up code, write algorithms for you. I could see if you're writing code for hardware, or you're writing in C or C++ for a chip or something, I can see where AI would be better there, but more on that a little later. So Nvidia, they're known for their hardware, but they have this growing array, this growing set of software solutions. And in fact, that's their main strategy now. Nvidia's main strategy, as far as I understand, is that they want to integrate their software solutions with their hardware solutions. They're smart, because one of the reasons Intel, they make processors, got in trouble is that they were just strictly hardware. For the most part, as far as I don't know what software they had, but they were pretty much a hardware company. Whereas Nvidia learned from this, I would imagine. So they have a whole suite of software tools. Part of it is for, you guessed it, app development. So it's in Nvidia CEO's best interest to say, hey, you shouldn't learn to code. Coding is their competition. You shouldn't learn to code. You should use our platform and leverage AI and be much more productive. So I think there is, I haven't talked to him, but just a little bit of common sense tells you that he's speaking to his own book, as they say. He wants people to shift off of competing platforms to use their platform. Strangely enough, to this day, I'm sure Nvidia is probably hiring a ton of developers, right? Keep that in mind. So I think that's one of the reasons why, my guess, I don't have insider knowledge, my guess why he's talking about it's a dev of code, come and use our stuff, As a general rule, AI, I still see it as, and it will be for the foreseeable future, and as an assistive tool. It will something that will speed up the process for you, and I encourage people to use it. In fact, in my mentoring program at UncleSteph.com, Shameless Self-Promotion, we're adding more and more AI to it. And it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the core curriculum that I provide. And don't get me wrong, I'm not married to any technology. I'm willing to drop a technology, drop whatever from the curriculum if I felt that it didn't serve people in the program. But I still have my foundational training courses in there because it's still super important. When you look at AI, you have to just look at it as an assistive tool. It's going to shift things over. It's not going to decimate the industry, as some people are saying. Typically, people say this are noobs. So let me give you a couple of examples about how we've seen hype cycles before, and AI is definitely in a hype cycle. We've seen hype cycles before, but just didn't pan out. So if you recall years ago, when Tesla started promoting their self-driving capabilities in the car, Elon Musk was saying, as part of his promotion, that, hey, the Tesla self-driving capability is going to be so good very soon that the Tesla will be able to drive you everywhere, and in fact, it will drive you to work, and then you could send out your Tesla to go do Uber rides for you, so in fact, the Tesla will make you money or not cost you anything. That was the story for a while. Sounded great, and I kind of got caught up in that hype a little bit as well, but it's many years later, It's not even close to that. People were talking about on the news how, oh my God, truckers, they're dead, the self-driving trucks, it's over, all those truckers are gonna be out of business. Didn't happen. Many years later, what is it, 7 years later, whatever it is now, it's not even close to that. It's not even close. Don't get me wrong, self-driving is great. My self-driving vehicle, it's not as good as the Tesla. It's the Genesis, so it's the high-end Hyundai. You know, I decided to get rid of my German cars because I didn't want to go to the shop every 2 minutes. But anyway, self-driving car, I've driven it from my hometown in Montreal all the way down to Florida. On the highway, it takes care of 99% of the driving. It's fantastic. But I still have to pay attention. I still have to drive, and off the highway, there's no way I'm going to use it. There's no way it can be used. So self-driving is coming out, but man, it's not even 10% of what they said it was going to be when the whole hype cycle was in full operation, right? So that's just one example of, you know, you got to take anything you hear with a grain of salt. You know, humans tend to over-exaggerate things, whether the good or the bad. It's just normal. So as I said, I've seen several times where we've seen new technologies emerge where the people out there were either the doomer and gloomers, were like, oh my God, it's the end of this, the end of that. Or the people behind the new technology are saying, oh, it's the end of this, the end of that. You should do our stuff instead. So let me give you a few recent examples. So example number one, WordPress, the content management system WordPress. Everybody loves, a little sarcasm there, but so many sites use it, like huge numbers. Anyway, WordPress versus static branding websites. When WordPress and other content management systems came out, a lot of nerds were going, oh my God, it's over, web design is done, the web design industry is over, because once you put up the WordPress site, then the user, the company could just click, you know, use it like a word processor and add their own articles, so they won't need us anymore. Well, yes and no. It just shifted the work. Web designers still had to build the sites and make them look good. They had to set up the WordPress now, which, you know, most people who don't have the technical capabilities will be able to do that. And then they had to make them SEO friendly. They had to make sure everything is updated. They got the proper plugins in place, blah, blah, blah. So all it did, yeah, the static only websites faded quite a bit, and they were replaced by things like WordPress and Drupal and Joomla and other content management systems. But the workload just exploded. And in fact, the complexity of deploying a WordPress or a Joomla or Drupal, the complexity of those systems are far greater than traditional static websites. So yeah, it did change things, but it just created a huge amount of more work. Now, for some people out there saying, yeah, well, Joomla and Drupal work and WordPress work, it's low pay work. Well, only the low pay WordPress work is low pay work. I know people personally who do WordPress and make very, very good money because they know what they're doing in terms of freelancing and so forth and contract negotiation. So that's just one simple example. WordPress was going to be the doom of web design. That's it for HTML and CSS. It's gone. Well, nothing could be further from the truth, right? Another example was page-based web app development versus old school code-centric. So this is in 1996. Prior to that, everybody was building web apps they were simple web apps, Perl CGI based, C CGI, and then Java servlets. I won't get into all the details. Basically, the view code, the code used to build the pages, what you saw, was actually embedded within the programming language code. And then Microsoft came out with active server pages, ASP. They call it ASP Classic now. It's the precursor to ASP.NET. Anyway, so they came out as a whole different paradigm shift. And ASP, this page-centric web app development paradigm, totally changed the game. I personally did my first major project in ASP Classic, taking an old CGI-based app and reproducing in ASP Classic, and I was able to do it in like 1/10 the amount of time. So people would be going, oh my God, it's the end of the world. They're able to do the work in 1/10 the time, no more work in web app development. Nothing could be further from the truth. It just shifted what we did, and it improved the quality of the final output. That's all. Another big example is the web itself. I remember in 94, 93, most of the development was thick client development. So you would write an application for Windows or Mac OS or I don't know, maybe Linux. I don't know if Linux was out then, but we'll say Windows, Mac OS. And you would write your application, you create an exe, and then you put it on a CD-ROM or a DVD, or you put it up for download, people download, install it on a computer. That was the way people built apps. That was by far and away. VB5 and 6 developers were huge, tons of work in that, tons of work in that. And along came the web, and it took many years to transition, but web development started pushing away thick client development. And you still see thick client development, you know, certain apps have to be done native, thick client, but it pushed it away, and web pushed a lot of that away, and now you have web development. Did all those VB6 developers became ASP.NET developers, and the skill sets transferred over, although they had to learn new things. Again, it wasn't a replacing of coders or developers, it was a shifting of the skill sets. Hey, let's go even deeper in terms of a big change in software development. So prior to thick clients, right, which I just discussed, you had mainframe green screen type of development. So we're talking COBOL programmers and stuff. So, you know, when PCs started coming out in the 1980s, that shifted away, right? In the old days, they would have these massive computers called mainframes, and everybody would have these terminals with green screens, and the terminals would communicate with the mainframe. So all the processing was done on the server, on the mainframe, and then and the green screen was just there to type in commands. And that's how it was for many, many, many years. And then along came personal computers, IBM PCs and so on, then Windows and Mac and so on. So that changed the paradigm. Again, it went to thick client development. So right off the top of my head, you know, I gave you WordPress versus static, page-based web app development versus code-centric, web thin client development versus thick client development, mainframe versus PC. You know, these are huge changes in the market where there's big shifts in how things were done. And the development jobs did not disappear. In fact, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's what is going to happen in the AI space. So you have the Nvidia CEO saying, hey, you don't need to learn to code. You should learn other things, domain name skill, domain knowledge he talks about. I've been talking about this for many years now, if you watch my videos. Domain knowledge, I'll get into that in a second. That's very important. Just being able to communicate well, but you need good organizational skills. You basically need development skills. Whether you're using AI to generate some of the code or a lot of the code, or you're writing your code by hand, or you're using a code editor that is assisted by an AI like Copilot, you still need development skills. So yeah, the Nvidia CEO said, don't learn to code, you know, perhaps you should look at our platform instead. On the other hand, you have the founder of ChatGPT, OpenAI. He's saying on stage just recently, no, coding is going to be around for years and years and years. It's just going to shift. And remember, don't forget the hype cycle. We're in this hype cycle. Self-driving cars, we're going to drive Ubers for you and replace truck drivers. That was 70 years ago. You know, it didn't happen. So let's pull out here, outside of the coding itself. Let's just look at some reality about what's going on in the marketplace. Today, in 2024, there are many huge, many huge and small companies and organizations that still use very old software. So you have lots and lots of banks that are still on mainframes. This is 1960s, 1970s technology. You'd be surprised how many companies still run off of Excel, right? They run so much of their operations on Excel. You'd be surprised how many companies still use WordPress and Drupal. These are old technologies, relatively speaking. I can tell you, because of the nature of all these technologies that are being used today, for AI to go in there and disrupt those and replace them, that's not going to happen. It will slowly change. AI will be slowly integrated into these things. But it's much less about the coding. It's like coding is this part of it, this much of it, versus all the other things we talk about in development. Remember, anybody who tells you that coding is writing the code is the bulk of coding, it's not really. When people talk about coding, what they're really talking about most of the time is development. And development, when it comes to development, coding is a part of it, a part of it. You have to understand the code, and even in the AI space, in the AI world, you're going to have to understand code. You have to understand the infrastructure, which you're working with. You have to understand the solution. So for example, let's say you go and see a client, and they got a bunch of data that is going to be stored. It's got to be exposed on the web. What kind of database? Do you go with a relational database? Do you go with a flat file-based system? Do you go with an object-based database? What are the reasons to use one or the other? You have to look at the data. You have to look at the company's infrastructure. What do they have? What skills? What are they using now? Right? This all has to be worked out. AI can help because you can look at it and so on and type in, ask GPT, what do you think it is? What do you think it is? But you still need to know what you're doing to be able to do all this. As I mentioned earlier, the AI people are saying more and more and more, you have to have good domain knowledge. So I'll give you the example. Let's say you want to get your software in the pharmaceutical industry. I'll just use that as an example. The best people to get new software solutions, whether it's AI-based or not, into pharmaceutical, the best people to do that are people who know the pharmaceutical industry like the back of their hand. They understand intimately where the gaps are, where the wheels are squeaky, where there's opportunity to leverage software, whether it's AI or traditional. They understand how to fix that. So for example, with me and education, I've been working with schools for well over a decade now. So I have a very good understanding of how education works, the loopholes, how curriculum is better structured to get better results. It's just because I've had well over 1 million students on my platform, so it's like you learn through years. So when it comes to somebody who might deploy software for education, I'm a pretty good judge of that simply because I have domain knowledge. I know that industry well. To recap, development, I'm reading my notes here. Development is about structuring a bunch of technology and resources. Being able to structure all of this, AI can help, but it won't be able to do it on its own. AI will speed up the process of some of the detail work, though. That's for sure. So where AI, I can see it could do very well, is modifying, optimizing an algorithm, or writing, a complex SQL statement. Algorithm writing, well, I've been saying for years, forget about learning about algorithms and data structures. You just need the basics, just the very basics. Why? Because if you got complex algorithms, there's probably a library that'll do it for you. This is before AI. Now with AI, so to test as coding skills, development skills by testing somebody's algorithmic knowledge is a waste of time. It's been a waste of time for years, in my opinion. It's been silly. The only time you needed that, by the way, is if you were writing like very advanced code for processing huge data for, say, a Google or a Facebook, a big engine like that, or big data mining, or maybe you're writing advanced algorithms for collision detection or something in a video game. Well, even that, they got all kinds of libraries for that. So I've been anti-algorithm and data structure BS for years now. And now with AI, I've been proven right even more so. It's so obvious. AI could take care of that. Why can the AI take care of that and not, let's say, big picture development? Because when you're writing an algorithm, it's a very finite chunk of code. It's very focused, central. So it's easy to point an AI at that and say, can you optimize this? You got to know what you're doing so you know that it's not putting out a bunch of BS. AI hallucination is a thing. And even the AI experts will tell you about that. That's why you need domain experts who can use the AI to get to a result quicker, but they can also catch the AI going off on some weird hallucination. So yeah, AI, great for very fine-grained code, like writing SQL statements, writing algorithms, that kind of stuff. That's great. Let's say you're not sure how to do something. How do I create a thread in Java? I haven't done this in years. That's where I would use an AI. Type it in, threading in Java example, I'm using this level of Java, there's the answer. Okay, I know the basics of threading, I've written it before, but I forget, so instead of me having to search through docs, that's where AI will speed up things. All right, so my final comment again, what I've been teaching for years is still 100% true. Learn your fundamentals so you understand how the whole coding thing works and development works. I always teach the web stack because it offers the greatest opportunities, different types of development. I teach 3 programming languages, so you have a deep understanding of the basic structures of the software. And then you start building real projects as quickly as possible, implementing good project management capabilities and organizational skills, problem-solving skills. How do you get good at problem-solving? You solve problems. How do you get good at fighting? You go and you fight. How do you get good at dating? You go on dates, right? It's the same thing with development. So one of the problems with this explosion of online education is that there's unlimited tutorials out there. Unfortunately, a lot of tutorials are built by people who never wrote software for real, so I just want to start building things as quickly as possible. So what I have people do in my mentoring program, fundamentals, learn the 3 programming languages, then you learn on top of it HTML5, CSS3, you learn SQL, you learn how to manage small projects, you learn how to track your time, all this kind of stuff. And then you go out there and you go out there and you build projects for real companies. That's the key. There you go, guys. I wouldn't be too worried about the AI thing. You got to be cognizant of it. You got to start looking at it, integrate it into your workflows. But it's not going to replace coders. It's just going to do, as I mentioned with those other technologies and several others, it's just going to shift what it is we do. That's all. So I wouldn't be too concerned. Don't let the hype cycle freak you out. I'm Uncle Steph, and I mentor people in the ways of development and coding and so much more. You can check me out at unclesteph.com. If you have any disagreements about this topic, you're not sure if you agree with me, whatever, put comments below. Let me know. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you hate my video, give me 2 thumbs down to show you how much you hate my stuff. And